This episode of Recap Ethiopia was filmed on Thursday, July 9, 2020. As such, some development in the case may not be included. There was a shadow in the air, looming over Ethiopia in the past week. It came in the form of sticks and stones, broken windows, burned cars, loss of lives, and unfortunate confrontations. Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia, and towns on the Oromia regional state were under siege. Early on Tuesday morning, Addis woke up to watch young people from the surrounding parts of the city entering it, chanting and wielding sticks. Cars were burned, shops looted, buildings were destroyed by stone-wielding protesters. Bombs were set off and lives were lost. The country had lived through one of its most harrowing moments of its recent history. The reason? A famous musician being shot in his car, according to the police reports, on the nights of Monday, June 29, 2020. He was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late as he had passed away from the gunshot wounds inflicted near area commonly known as Galan Condominium, near the singer's home. This week's recap is about Hachalu Hunddessa, a young musician whose death has sparked many events that happened throughout the week following his death. Who was Hachalu? Why did his death cause such a rumble throughout Ethiopia? This week's episode will cover it. I'm Wongel Tamene, and this is Recap Ethiopia. Hachalu was born in Ambo, a city located 125 kilometers west of Addis Ababa. The singer was known for his inspirational songs. Hachalu was not just a famous musician. He was also known for his political activism. Reports show that his life had long been intertwined with political movements in Oromia regional state. He had his political upbringing in the city where he was born and raised, which was a flashpoint for many protest movements. He also played a significant role in the Qeerroo youth movement that is considered by many to have created a significant amount of pressure, leading to the resignation of former Prime Minister Haile Desalegn and the introduction of the new administration of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali. But politics was not the only thing that he did when he was young. He began playing the Ethiopian traditional instrument commonly known as kirar in his youth as well. According to his friends, there was a spot where he used to practice his kirar, a place named Ambo Alam II, which was also a place where people used to gather to discuss politics. His participation in the discussion allegedly caused him a significant amount of trouble with the authorities at a young age. Later in the 2000s, the singer was sent to prison for a 5-year sentence. While many believe he was sent to prison for the political symbol he represented in the Oromo struggle, the narrative from the government at that time was that the artist was detained and sentenced over murder charges. Then he spent 5 years in prison and went back to high school to get his diploma after completing his sentence. Outside of prison, his formative years as a professional musician started as a drummer for a band based in the city of Adama. Following that, Hachalu secured his big break with the release of his first professional music record called Senyi Moti. His political activism grew with his music career as the appeal he had towards the youth helped in the matter. Songs like Malanjira, as well as his album, Wae Kenya, gave him a status of an activist in the Oromo struggle generally and the Qeerroo movement specifically. He was allegedly seen as a tool for the fight for freedom, equality, and democracy in the region. In different occasions, the singer himself has referred to himself as a politician, even though he was not formally a member of any party. He often spoke of his intentions to contribute to the struggle of his people by using his profession and talent. Hachalu and his fans have also often alleged different harassment efforts from government officials during the reign of the previous administration. The singer is survived by his wife and 3 children. Reports suggest that, in line with the culture of helping the families of the deceased, a committee comprising of family members, government officials, and other stakeholders was created on July 4, 2020, in order to come up with ways to help the singer's family in a consistent manner. We have learned from the past 3 Junes. We will work to make next year's June productive and not deadly. were the words from the commander-in-chief of the country, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, on a televised meeting held with high-level officials and security authorities on July 3, 2020. At the end of an eventful and tense week, the Prime Minister reassured the adamance of his administration to further the country's development and the commitment of the same to halt any efforts to create instability in Ethiopia. The news of the death of artist Hachalu Hunddessa on Monday evening was met with mixed emotions by different members of the Ethiopian community. The days that followed the tragic death of the singer are testament enough to the significance of the event in the country's 3-year journey of reform. As noted by the Prime Minister, the 3 Junes that country has passed since the introduction of Abiy's administration have been filled with tragic deaths of different individuals. The assassination attempt on the life of the Prime Minister himself that claimed the lives of his supporters at Mesqal Square in June 2018, the killing of several government officials, including the President of Amhara Regional State, Dr. Ambacho Mokonnin, Security Advisor to the President of the Amhara Regional State, Izez Wasi, Amhara Regional State Attorney General Migbaru Kabbede, former Chief of Staff of the Army General Sa'ara Mokonnin, and retired General Gazai Abirra in June of 2019, and also the recent installment of instability in 2020 have made the month one that bears sorrow and grief with it. Artist Hachalu Hunddessa was killed near his home in an area commonly known as Galan Condominium on Monday, June 29, 2020. The news of his assassination came as a shock to everyone in the country. In the morning that followed, scenes of protests in areas of Addis Zeybe near to Oromia region were followed by the protests that spilled over to most of Addis Ababa as angry mobs started destroying property, smashing windows relentlessly as they expressed their discontent in the death of artist Hachalu Hunddessa. Areas like Boli, Piazza, Saris, Samit, Jamo, Gotara, Qera, and more were filled with angry groups from the group commonly known as the Qero. Clashes with residents of the city followed the actions of the angry mob as Addis Ababa police forces, federal police forces, and members of the special forces were deployed all over the capital of the nation. Afterwards, the city was quiet in all definitions. The days that followed were of uncertainty and insecurity in the once vibrant city. The government's decision to shut down the internet has contributed to minimize the spread of violence inciting messages. At the same time, it has also cut the nation from the rest of the world. The funeral of the deceased singer was scheduled to happen on Thursday at his birthplace, the city of Ambo. As his family started to travel towards the city, 125 kilometers away from the capital, to conclude the funeral services of Hachalu Hunddessa. However, what allegedly transpired during their venture to the city was of paramount surprise. According to reports from the Attorney General's office, the Federal Police, and the Oromia Police, there was an attempt by Jawar Mohammed and Beqqele Garba-led group of protesters to apprehend the body of the deceased artist Hachalu Hunddessa. The group then brought the body of the artist to the office of the Prosperity Party in Addis Ababa with an attempt to make a political statement. In an altercation that allegedly claimed the lives of one police officer assigned to the office and an unspecified amount of civilians, the attempt was curbed and later on unraveled as a part of a larger political scheme to possibly overthrow the sitting government by causing chaos in the country's capital. The government later on made public the news of the apprehension of certain individuals, including vocal opposition leaders such as Iskandar Nega, Jawar Mohammed, and Beqqele Garba, along with employees of the news agencies such as OMN. The role of the media outlets in the chaos that ensued in Addis Ababa and other parts of the country was amplified by the government on many occasions, with stations such as OMN, Dimtsa Wayani, and Tigray TV allegedly spreading rumors of administrative chaos within the ruling party on the days following the death of the artist. On the meeting, the Commissioner of the Federal Police in Dashaut stated that the stations had been spreading rumors of apprehension of government officials, including but not limited to the Deputy Mayor of Addis Ababa, Takkala Uma, the President of the Oromo Regional State, Shimallis Abdissa, and the Attorney General, Adanech Abeebe. In addition, the stations were also allegedly spreading rumors surrounding the killing of the singer with intentions of making it a racial war over in a similar theme that seems to not relent in the nation. It's known to all that Jawar Mohammed is a political figure in the Ethiopian political arena and a significant symbol of struggle, amassing massive levels of support within a significant portion of the Oromo people. Initially known as a social media activist and blogger, Jawar established the Oromia Media Network roughly 5 years ago following an appearance on the important political show Al Jazeera Stream, where he publicly claimed that he was Oromo first and Ethiopia was imposed on him. Following that, the recently arrested political personality became a strong figure in Ethiopian politics, weighing in on a number of issues of pertinence to the country on different platforms. Jawar was one of the persons that returned to Ethiopia following the introduction of Abiy's reformed administration. Jawar Mohammed has since joined politics and formed a new coalition, which includes Merara Guddina's Oromo Federalist Congress and Daud Ibsa's Oromo Liberation Front, following a bloody protest by his supporters that took the lives of 86 civilians. The party includes renowned political figures from the Oromia region, including the recently detained Beqqele Garba. Beqqele Garba was a lecturer who started commenting on different media outlets over the detention of university students over political issues. He joined OFC, a party established by Dr. Merara Guddina and Ato Bulcha Dammaqsa. He was detained because of his political endeavors, forcing him to spend some time in prison on several occasions. He returned to his political engagement after being released from prison. After the change of government and Abiy Ahmed's coming to power, he got out of prison and has since been affiliated with Jawar Mohammed's coalition. Another prominent figure detained in relation to the riots in Addis was Iskandar Nagga. To look back at Iskandar's engagement in Ethiopia politics, many identify the pioneer in online blogging in Ethiopia. Iskandar's dedication and participation in the Ethiopian free press for over 3 decades has led to his torture, arrest, and imprisonment, as well as recognition from different international awards. With newspapers such as Ethiopis, Minilik, and Satanaw, Iskandar Nagga's contribution to freedom of press and journalism in Ethiopia should not be understressed while discussing his background. Recently released as part of Dr. Abiy Ahmed's reform agenda, Iskandar Nagga created the Balderas movement, mainly centered at standing for the rights of the residents of Addis Ababa in 2019. The movement later changed into the Balderas Party, which was allegedly involved in the recent clashes that transpired in Addis Ababa. The Prime Minister noted in his opening speech at the meeting of the high officials that the individuals behind the recent instability in the nations were the same people the government either released from prison or invited back from exile to participate in the political space created by his new reformed administration. However, continues the Prime Minister, these persons have persisted on creating chaos and instability in order to amass power for themselves. This incident was no different, according to the Prime Minister's comments. He also reassured the public and called on his officials present at the meeting to make sure that the rule of law is observed, preferably by peaceful means, but if necessary, also with proportional force. He noted the imperative time Ethiopia finds itself in both in the continuing local election drama and the external negotiations persisting over the GERD, Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, and that all Ethiopians must unite to curb the danger that threatens their unity and prosperity in the coming years. The head of the federal police gave a clear account of what allegedly happened in the days that followed the killing of artist Hachalu Hunddessa. The overall alleged strategy of the perpetrators was identified as having 2 features. The first one was spreading chaos in the capital and the other parts of the country by turning the death of the young artist into an ethically motivated killing, while the second one was spreading false information about the arrest of high government officials and the divide between the military, prompting the public into fueling more chaos in the country. On the first day, the commissioner allegedly stated that there were 2 kinds of groups that traveled to Addis following the assassination of the young artist. The first group claimed the commissioner was composed of peaceful fans and supporters of the artist that came to mourn the death of the artist, while the other group was a destructive mob that intended to create chaos in the capital. The commissioner stated that there were similar incidents in other parts of the country as well. According to the report, there were individuals that were strategically planning the destruction to amass a response from the public in Addis and leading into clashes between civilians. Similarly, on the second day, the youth, according to the report, were armed with different political intentions and were representing different institutions. The groups allegedly tried to create chaos within the residents of the city, but were put under control with the help of the police forces. Finally, the commissioner also noted that the main focus of the police force on the third day was guaranteeing the peaceful completion of the funeral programs in the city of Ambo. The commissioner discussed different efforts taken by the police forces deployed to guarantee the program at the Ambo City Stadium and the funeral program went through without any disruptions of peace. The commissioner, however, noted that there were efforts to retake the body of the artists in the process of conducting the funeral service. The police force allegedly took the necessary measures against these forces with an alleged support from the community as well. The commissioner finally noted the casualties in the 3 days of instability in different parts of the nation. In Addis Ababa, the commissioner reported the death of 2 police officers and 8 civilians, while in the Oromia region, 5 members of the police forces lost their lives during the recent installment of riots in the region. In the period following the death of the artist, the commissioner also reported that roughly 3,500 persons were arrested, of which some are being released, while those with prior affiliations will be tried. Currently, the total death toll stands at more than 220. The commissioner finally shared information about the investigation into the murder of singer Hachalu Hunddessa, as well as other arrests made in relation to the riots related to the killing of the singer. In relation to the assassination of the singer, the commissioner noted that 4 suspects are under custody pending additional investigation by the relevant authorities. In addition to that, the commissioner also noted that Jawar Mohammed and 38 more people have been arrested and brought before court within 48 hours. Additionally, the commissioner also discussed the measures taken towards institutions such as the Balderas Party, Dimtsa Wayane, Tigray TV, and Asrat TV. In relation to the media outlets, the commissioner reminded the public that there were repeated cautions given to the stations on many occasions prior to the current measures taken. The events of the past week were not out of the political context and history of instability of the nation. In the past few years, the country has been marred with such instances of protests and instability for the past decade, powered by different political agendas, but similar themes raised surrounding ethnicity and aimed at fragmenting the nations beyond recognition. With extremist social media users, mainstream media outlets, and political opposition leaders, coupled with irresponsible information sharing, cultures of its citizens, the threat of clashes between different groups of people has come and gone on many occasions in the past few years. There is ample evidence for this. The spike in internally displaced persons all over the nation and the recurrent assassination of key personnel is evidence enough to support the above assertion. The current installment of protests in Addis Ababa have taught Ethiopians a number of things, while the unpredictable nature of the country's political situation persists. One of the things to point out is the strong political stance taken by the ruling government, which is not in line with the theme of the administrations in occasions such as this one. Contrary to the criticism Dr. Abiy's administration has received in the past, the government took serious measures against those it deemed responsible for the death of the singer and for the protests that followed. Another important feature of the administration that was tested during the recent riots in Addis was that the transparency shown during the days of the protests and the period that followed. Important appearances from the government officials and the detailed information given to the public on such appearances played a great role in showcasing the transparency in the current administration, as well as calming the public during such a trying time. Finally, it's important to note that the riots have brought with them a number of challenges in a week that was unlike many in Addis Ababa. The first issue came in the form of inability by the Ministry of Health and other relevant bodies to conduct tests in the same frequency and volume as the days before the assassination of the artist. This, coupled with the lack of using proper safety equipment during protests and the movement to and from the hub of the virus, Addis Ababa, is something to take note of, and it is important that the relevant government bodies and other stakeholders working to contain the pandemic give such variables the necessary attention to prevent a spike in cases as seen in the US, where there were similar protests followed by spikes in cases. Another issue is the gap created in the fight to control and combat the coronavirus pandemic by the current administration. With the internet suspended on Tuesday morning, the information outlets on different social media outlets were ineffective. This created a significant gap on the flow of information in relation to the coronavirus pandemic. Though seemingly insignificant, this could be a significant moment in the country's engagement with the merciless pandemic thus far. While the jury is still out on deciding over the correctness of the suspension of the internet services, there's no denying the lack of information over the virus may contribute to the inability of individuals, businesses, and organizations to take informed precaution to protect themselves and the community from the COVID-19 pandemic. That's it for this week's episode. Thank you for watching, and make sure you tune in next week for more of Recap Ethiopia.